I want to talk to you today about financial freedom and investing your way to get there, right? Hitting that financial freedom number. And I hit mine, and I would do it differently if I could do it again. And I want to share some advice on this. So I think it's really more of a investing maturity that I have now. And I think people honestly have to go through the school of knocks to get there. But I want to try and give you this perspective. When I was first getting into this game, I had my financial freedom number. It was $10,000 a month. If I can hit $10,000 a month, man, we are golden. I can, live on the beach and do all the fun things that I thought I was going to do. And so my focus was on the investments. How do I get cash flowing investments? And I've grown past that. I don't think that is where your initial focus should be. That is the objective. But I think there's almost like a step before that. Instead of focusing on how do I get as many cash flowing doors as I can, what I now focus on is focusing on active income. I think that is the first most foundational step. Focus on growing your active income to invest, not active income to spend or to blow or to keep up with the Joneses. How do I make more money in my business so that I can compile it and buy assets, right? And I think that's a small distinction that you might miss, but there is such a massive difference between the mindset going into that. And so let me put it in perspective. When Laura and I were first getting started, we're like, all right, how do we hit our 10K a month, right? And we were flipping houses, we were buying rental properties, and we got to about 15 doors within the first few years. And we actually, within a couple years, hit our $10,000 a month of, passive income, right? Nothing passive about it. But this was my objective. How do I buy these cheap little rental properties? They were, we were buying things for, $200,000 for a single family, a couple $100,000 for a, duplex and that kind of stuff. They were not, beautiful, wonderful investments, right? And so they were cash flowing, a couple $100 at a time, hopefully, $300. And some of them did get to the place, right? We had inflation, all the different things, and some of them went up to like, $6,000, $8,000, $1,000 a month on some of these deals. And that was fantastic. But that was kind of lucky because of COVID and then the inflation that happened after that. If there wasn't this drastic increase in rents and things, that wouldn't have happened for me. So my focus was, how do I collect all these dinky little deals? And when I'm first getting started, most people are, right? You have this job, this W-2, and you're like, oh my gosh, I gotta get out of the rat race. And so how do I get my first deal? How do I get my second deal? How do I get my 10th deal? That is the objective, is the deal. It is not really how do I grow my income so that I can get great deals. And I think that is where the maturity has come for me. Because after you do this game for enough years, man, these crappy little deals, like I was spending so much time to get them, they're making nothing, right? My $300 a month of cash flow is really zilch after all the different things happen and all the different repairs, right? Like that's the lesson that I learned. I had 15 doors, which were a massive headache. There was no financial freedom there. That is a lie. That was a myth, right? Like, there was so much work that went into managing these doors. It was ridiculous. It was literally not worth it. I was pulling my hair out being like, dude, I gotta sell this crap. These ones over here, these are nightmares. These ones over here are decent. They still don't make any real wealth, right? Like you're not gonna get super wealthy, collecting a bunch of little rental properties, right? The difference of maturity is now let me focus on my business, right? That might be my W-2, that might be starting my own business, it might be both. And now let me grow my net worth because I can so much quicker increase my active income than increase my passive income. So if I can increase my active income and then say, a line in the sand, I'm not spending this extra money, I'm putting it into a sacred account. Here is an extra $10,000 a month that I can stack away because of my side hustle or because of this business that I started. My attention should first and foremost be there. Increase my active income to invest. And then I have a great stockpile of cash ready to go and I can buy an awesome deal. And that was the mistake that I have. I was trying to get my first deal, a quick deal, an easy deal, any deal really, right? I would try to take any deal that I thought would cash flow and that hit my model that penciled. And that actually did not work. It did pencil and on paper, it made money and the ROI was there. In reality, in real life with tenants, and all of this was in California, and all of the different things with COVID and just real life, it sucked. It was not worth it. It was a waste of my time. what I do now is I'm gonna focus on income and I'm gonna focus on an active business that I can grow, and then I'm gonna pull my time back from there, right? That is real net worth and real financial freedom when you can run a company and pull your time back from that. Man, that's a totally different thing. And then you stockpile the cash from that, and then you start buying awesome deals. That is what I would say. Here's what I'm doing now. This is what I would say to people getting into the game, right? Is, you know what? I understand that there's like this like excitement and I'm gonna get my first rental property and all those kind of things. Man, you know what? I guess 10 years ago, that was a little bit easier to do. Right now in this market with interest rates being where they are, insurance, which was like quadrupled in the last few years, all of the tenant BS that's out there and lawsuits and litigations and laws protecting tenants, man, it's like illegal to make a profit nowadays. Like it's ridiculous with these rental properties. So I wanna encourage you to think about it in a different way. Think about it from this perspective. How do I stay in my seat, right? Doing what I'm doing now, add a side hustle to this, put my first bit of attention, the first 6 months of like, instead of trying to make offers, and buy all these crappy little deals, man, increase your income. How do you save an extra 5 or 10 grand a month by increasing your business, by increasing your side hustle so that you don't buy this crappy little deal, right? Something that's just gonna be a waste of time and effort. And don't be afraid to start your own business. That can be your passive investment. It's gonna start active, right? You're gonna build your company, you're gonna scale your company, but you can have a pretty passive business that you have built and then you pulled your time back from. And so think of it from this perspective. You go and you buy, 15 rental properties like I did. And you essentially hire a property manager, and now essentially I'm passive, right? Like I am not doing this deal anymore, the property manager is. The property manager, they have an active business, right? They are running their company, they have their handyman, they have their assistant, whomever is helping them run their property management stuff, right? That's not your business, that's their business. Their objective is to make profit for their property management company, less about your cash flow, right? That is a secondary priority to them. So you don't have control of that. You don't have control of, how are they responding to the tenants? How are they marketing your doors that are empty? How are they approving the different repairs and things that are happening? All of a sudden you go in and you have this, penciled out and you're like, hey, I'm gonna make this much cash flow, a month or a year. And then all of a sudden somebody else who's running your doors doesn't really have your best interest in mind, right? They're trying to make the most profit for them. So they're cutting corners. They may have a bad property management team. They may have a bad handyman. They may just not care about the type of tenants that they're allowing in. And because they are running their active company, which is not yours, now your business, your passive investments now make no cash flow. So compare that to the other option of I'm going to start my own business, right? That's my baby. I can control this. I am the boss. I can fire these people. I can say, here's my policies and procedures. Here's how we're going to do this process. And this is the way you have to do it. You can't tell a property manager that. You can't say, here is the sequence of steps that I want you to go through when you're vetting new tenants to move in. Here is the, yes or no kind of stuff on approving, expenses and things like that for repairs, right? You can tell them that stuff, but they're not going to necessarily listen. They're going to do it their way, which may mean that you make no cash flow. And that was the case for me, right? Lots of work, lots of effort, lots of headache. And where did my cash flow go? To someone else's mistakes or, lackluster performance. They're property managers. They don't give a crap. There's no good property managers out there, right? So think of the other side now. You go, instead of taking all of this effort and energy and cash and pouring it into these dinky little deals, you pour it into a business opportunity. You pour it into, I'm going to become an entrepreneur. You may quit your W-2, you may keep the W-2 and have kind of your side hustle. But this is something that you can control. You can set the standard. You can have excellence. You have your best interest in mind, right? You know what, your bottom line is and how you're trying to get there. And so because of this, you can create all of these systems, you can grow your team, you can scale your business, and then, within a few years or however long it takes you, depending on your industry, you can start stepping back from that. And I think that is another way that I want to point out that you can really hit financial freedom, you can hit passive income, even though it's an active business, right? I spend so much more time managing my property manager on my 15 rentals than I spend on my active company, Platinum Resort. Lord, and I barely spent any time, literally like I don't know, an hour or two a week on our manager meeting. That's really what I spend at Platinum Resort. The amount of time and energy that I do going through all the BS and the drama and the evictions and all the crap with the rentals, I'm like, this is not worth it. I've been trying to sell these things off. I've sold about half of them and I'm trying to get rid of the rest of them. And it's like, dude, that is not the path for me. I thought that was how I get to financial freedom. And I hit the $10,000 a month, on paper, right? Like, and sometimes it would get pretty close to that on a monthly basis. But man, then you'd have this big old thing that happens. It's a new roof, it's a new HVAC. It's like, oh, well, there goes all that cash back out the door, every 6 months on some of these properties. So that is not worth it to me. And I think that's just a financial maturity kind of thing, because when you are brand new to this, you're like, man, any deal is a great deal, right? If I can get any rental property, fantastic, I'll have long-term equity. But the amount of effort and stuff that goes into it, giving you perspective, is fully not worth it, right? If you can put that same amount of energy into an active company, then from there, you can systematize everything. You can fire people, you can hire people, you can control the day-to-day. And then from there, when your team is running and you have everything going smooth, then you start pulling your time back. Man, that's where you can make massive active income, and then you can get your time freedom. Now you have massive active income, you have time freedom, and you have excessive cash. Then your excessive cash, you stockpile and you put into other great deals, other teams that are doing their thing and they're experts in their industry, right? Like, I'm not talking about let's go buy this $150,000 rental property. I'm talking about let's go invest in this big project over here, right? Where there's professionals who are, doing these things and making great money, and it's safe, and there's all these kind of things. So I am saying you can invest and you should invest, but the priority for me had shifted from I'm racing to get my first crappy little deal to I'm now focusing my attention on a business opportunity that can increase my income drastically. Then I can pull my time back and then I can invest. And I think that right there, man, especially nowadays with where the market is and how almost nothing pencils. Apartment deals are, so hard to find anything that works. Flipping barely works anymore. The single family game really doesn't work with the way, rents and mortgages and taxes have all gone. The opportunity is end of life care. It's assisted living. The amount of cash you can make in this is fantastic. So this is what I love, because really there's two parts to this business. You have the active business, right? You're running the day-to-day and you can make amazing money, right? $40,000+ a month if you're nearly full and you're running a great team. So from one of our mansions, about 40K. Then there also is the real estate play, right? We build new construction, that's our niche. And so I can go build something at substantially less than the future value. I'm not gonna go buy an existing building and business and have an appraisal done on it and pay full price. I can build and create massive value on the operations company and honestly have something of about 40-45% equity at stabilization. So I can literally build in about $2 million worth of equity. So I have now two parts of this, right? I have the active income, which is massive. Then I can build towards my time freedom, right? That's really the two things that I want there. And then I can stockpile, invest, and I have my own investment of the real estate with a couple $1 million there. That is my safety net. That is my retirement play, right? There's pretty much everything that I want from here. I wish somebody would have told me this 10 years ago when I got into the flipping and rental game, right? Like, Brett, just think bigger. Here's the roadmap. Here's the step-by-step on this kind of stuff. So that's really why I wanted to share this with you, man. If I could have done a do-over on this, right? Like, here's how I would do this. You're gonna get everything you want. It takes, I don't know, you could say you could get it done in probably 3 to 4 years, right? With a year and a half of finding a land, construction, getting your license, and then probably a year of building your team, your company, getting to a place where you're stabilized. It's not gonna be perfect after 1 year, but you can definitely start pulling your time back. Within a couple years of that, then you can have really everything dialed in. You can get to the place where you're working just a handful of hours a week. You have amazing cash flow. You have millions of dollars in equity, and now you're stockpiling your cash, and then you can start investing in other things. Or you stockpile the cash and you start growing, expanding your business, right? You can go from one mansion to building a neighborhood of these mansions. So we're building out. We finished phase 1 of our neighborhood. We have 2 16-bed mansions plus one other one on Mesa. That's a third one. And then we're gonna expand in about a year and build out phase 2. So eventually we'll have 80 beds here in Georgetown. And man, something probably of about $30+ million worth of real estate and business together. And that's something awesome, right? That's something big. That's something that excites me. The little dinky doors that I had, that was exciting at first when I was brand new, when I was a newbie, but I grew past that. And so some of you are like, hey, you know what? That's what I want. That's my goal. I want to get my first rental property. Great, do that. But just consider the lessons that other people have gone before you and learned, because in 5 years, you may think, oh, you know what? Like my mindset has switched. I've grown, I've matured financially speaking, and now I want something bigger. I want to do something better. So if you want to learn this investing strategy, how to get into assisted living, build these mansions, reach out to us. We do 2-day training events a couple times a year. Hit the website, assistedlivingmansion.com. You can book a call with our team, see when the next training event is, and see if you want to come out. So I hope this helps you. I hope this gets you to a fast track of financial freedom, and I'll see you guys on the next one.